I'd approve of March 4th.
Made.
Second?
Motion seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So moved. The April 1st minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept them.
Motion made,
Second.
seconded. And the only thing is, on the last sentence, just change that to not rather than note. All right. On the motion, all those, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. So moved.
Hold on one second, I'm sorry, I just noticed something. The April 1 we just did?
Please?
The April 1st minutes?
The April 1st, yes?
The top line says February 4th,
Oh, thank you.
so I guess vote to reconsider.
So moved. By somebody, right? Right ahead. that
Just
amendment.
motion to change Monday, February 4th, 2019 to Monday, April 1st, 2019.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So moved.
Well, we go back to did we go to March 4th already? That was the first one.
Yes, we did.
It's the same issue in,
Oh, the same issue on the March 4th,
Thank you.
and we'll change that. I think that's just an editorial. Okay. We have Mr. Rock here, and rather than have him wait till the end of the meeting, on the completion of Crabtree Lane and McHugh Circle subdivision.
Good evening. I didn't have a chance, my attorney or my engineer weren't available today. I just got this in the mail this morning as well.
I apologize, I just got that back from town council.
Okay,
That's
well,
on us, yeah.
anyway, we move on. So I did read this, and I know that I had originally planned on starting something a lot sooner, but due to the fact of a hardship in the family, due to the fact that my mother passed away in August, and prior to that, her rental house had a fire, and we just have been dealing with those issues. In fact, we were just able to, through the insurance company, tear the house down on Friday. So if the board is willing, I would, my plan all along has been to get this project done. As you know, regarding McHugh Circle, I've spent, can't tell you how many years and months and weeks trying to work with the abutter due to the fact that the board requested that I run the street through, which was my plan originally. So I guess what I'm saying is, my plan is to get as much completed as, my plan is to get Crabtree done and then McHugh Circle. And as long as, I would request from the board, as long as I'm moving forward and doing something and giving you updates, that you would show potentially some leniency as far as your deadlines and things like that.
I'm sure the board can speak up on this, but we really need to have it done, because it's theoretically, the town should be billing you for the snow plowing and everything else, which the town doesn't do. And it would be nice to have that done and forget about what's going to happen down the road, because it's been a number of years. In fact, we're about to change or have a discussion tonight on limits on how long these things can go on, but.
Well, I do, as you're aware, or maybe you're not, but I did submit in 2014 in October, I did submit an as-built to PMP. Do you have copies of that?
No.
Okay, so I have a letter here tonight. It was a review of the PMP plan, so actually it was dated October, so obviously I turned them in before October 28th, but that was done and reviewed by PMP. So the other issue that I would like the board to two other things I would like to address with the board is, number one, I'd like to hire Norwood Engineering and Dave Johnson, due to the fact Dave Johnson was the lead engineer for the town and P&P on both projects. So he's very knowledgeable with what's happened up there, so if that was something that I would request. And then lastly, I would also request that the town treasurer or accountant, I have not received, probably in the last 4 to 5 years, any interest on any of the bonds.
Yeah, you have to request that, so they just don't automatically do it unless you request it. I know we have sent you some, but,
Well, they told me that I had to go through you people, I thought.
well, you have to send a letter to the planning board asking for a
Okay.
release of the interest, and then
Right.
we turn it over to them. But if they don't get a request, nothing happens, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. So if you would vote potentially tonight that I could use Dave Johnson and Norwood Engineering, I would move forward and hire him to do the engineering along with SciTech, my engineer. So,
It would be the planning board that would hire him, so you would have to give the check to the planning board, and the planning board would hire Norwood Engineering.
Okay.
If that's the wish of the board.
Okay, that's fine.
So your plan is to finish work this construction season or start work this construction season on Crabtree?
Well, I'm going off of what was given to me. First of all, I'd meet with Dave Johnson and my engineer, SciTech, and I would go over what's previously been submitted as an as-built plan to the town,
Okay,
which was in the fall of 2014. And what I would do is I would go over that with him, and whatever he tells me needs to do, based upon what his review is and this review, I would get that done. And then I would work, the next project I would do is the McHugh Circle.
okay. If, timing-wise, it's a busy construction season, if it doesn't look like it's not going to happen by these dates, can you just let us know and give us a heads up? And
I'll give you progress as, you know, whenever I'm making progress, I'll give you updates and go along, things like that, yes.
Okay,
As well as Dave will be able to fill you in too, I'm sure.
So if that's all right with the board, if someone would like to make a motion to have, on receipt of a check from Mr. Rourke of $2,000, that we will change from PMP to do the review Form L with Norwood Engineering.
so moved?
Let's see, seconded? Seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good Fourth.
Two.
The public hearing at 6:05, public hearing subdivision 392 Randolph Street continued. There is a letter to continue the hearing that we have received from the owner or the engineer? Engineer? Yeah. And did they ask for when they'd like to be? September. So if we could have a motion to accept the extension to September.
I'll make a motion.
September.
And they said the planning board meeting in September. That was the arrangement.
Right. And just for, I will not be here on the 9th, for one. Be in New Jersey making a living. But if, as long as we can have 4 people, 3 or 4 people here, but that's, I just want to mention that to you right now.
We try to change it.
It's up to the board, maybe. If you would wish,
Private meeting.
We're gonna have a busy night that night, so if we could extend that one, you're talking about wait till when, October?
Well, that's, they asked for September, we can't change the
Okay.
date. But do you want to change the date of the meeting? It's gonna be a pretty large meeting.
Why?
Could we do it on a Wednesday night?
0 Summer Street,
0 Summer Street's continued to September.
392.
Wayne, could you be here on a Wednesday night?
I can't.
Wednesday, the 11th?
I can't work on Wednesday night. I have another gig.
What about Tuesday night?
Tuesday night I'll
night's
still be
okay.
there. It's a show that I have to be there.
Thursday night.
Thursday night's fine, the 12th.
How about you?
Well,
But-
I'm okay.
Okay, when do we do
I
it?
don't know whether the rest of the board wants
It's
it.
fine.
That's the first
Is
Thursday.
that okay? Is that all right with you?
It's fine with me. September.
Yeah, that should be fine. So that's the 12th?
All right, someone want to make a motion to continue the hearing till September 12th?
Motion.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? And then at the same, we can have the motion later tonight on the 12th. Okay, was there anyone here for that hearing? Yes. Since we continue it, it has to be discussed on that night when the other people are here. Thank you.
Which hearing is that?
That's the hearing on, what's the address? What?
Oh.
Yeah, 392 Randolph.
Oh, Summer Street.
Okay. And being 610 definitive subdivision, Katina Way, waivers to be granted.
Just as explanation, when I was drafting the decision letter, I saw that the board had voted the waivers on the plan, but had not voted the waivers separately. So just to, everything's been approved, and the waivers have been approved as they appear on the plan, but I didn't know if the board wanted to vote the waivers separately, as they were listed in the decision letter. They were listed in a review letter in March, and then in the last review letter, they weren't in there.
Well, it's kind of uncharacteristic, because we always do that.
You usually vote them separately, so
Yeah.
that's why I put them over, because I didn't want to write a decision letter if the board hadn't gone through and.
Have you got those?
Yep, right there.
Move to accept waivers as presented.
Yeah, it's a private way off,
Right.
you know. Let me just
Okay.
read them out, just so you'll know.
Except for the curving, right?
And these were all, as I say, it was Kelly Engineering was the engineering, and the applicants were Christopher O'Neill and Greg O'Neill. And then all of them were local, let's see, easement for continuation, a pavement width of 22 feet, planting strips 4.5 and 9.5. Actually, they provided 6 and 6. I should get back. The pavement width would be 16 feet instead of 22. And the local would be 40 foot to 30 foot provided. And the sidewalk, let's see, sidewalk is 1 at 5 foot and provided none. There are no. Is that just one side or the other side has a sidewalk? Remember?
It's just one side.
Yeah, it's one, so the other sidewalk's still in, right? I would
Oh,
presume.
no, this, no, because then further down,
Okay.
they ask, oh, that's how it's constructed.
Oh, so they still have one sidewalk on one
Think so.
side of the street. Pavement depth, 2.5 binder, 1.5 finish. We told them they could have a 2-inch binder and a 1-inch finish. Pavement width, 22 feet to 16 feet. Curbing, vertical granite curb to Cape Cod berm.
I think you still require vertical.
Huh?
Didn't you still require the granite for that?
I don't know at this point. We should make sure we know.
I'll have to check that to see what's on the plan, but I'm pretty sure it required the vertical granite.
Yeah, I don't think we gave them everything they were looking for.
No, that was the only one I don't think they got.
You know, I think we better actually get it rather than vote on it tonight.
Do you want me to grab the plan?
Yeah, because I just don't want to do something I shouldn't be doing. Because I know we had a good discussion on it that evening, but...
How many properties were subdivided on that Catalina Way? Was it,
Please.
how many properties were on that Catalina Way?
There weren't many. Were there 3 homes? I don't quite,
Sounds
you
like
know.
3 sounds familiar.
Please?
3 sounds familiar.
Yeah. But it
Wasn't very many.
always better when you look at the plan.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to think. It must be a really small piece of property if we gave up all these things in there.
We gave up a number of things. One reason is because of where it is and how few people are on it, and there's also some wetlands they're going over and to disturb that, and I suppose it'll be, it's a typical thing that family's gonna live here, but families don't live there forever.
Not forever, yeah. We've had that a lot, where developer will come in and say, it's just gonna be my family. Witness the one off of Chestnut Street, remember that? He's gonna have his family
Yeah.
over there.
Oh, yeah, it happens all the time.
But people don't always live in the same place all the time.
Did I kick something loose?
That was a weird noise coming in through mic 3, and so I'm trying to see.
Did you folks see that Butters Guide thing that I sent, was put in?
Yes,
the-
yes,
I
thank
think
you.
this is great.
Yeah, oh, yes, it puts a lot of stuff in
This is
perspective.
something that Town of Hanson uses, and, you know, it really, because of all the questions that we had at the last meeting about the abutters, this is a terrific document to, we could put our names on this and
Sure.
have this as a form. Actually,
I was gonna ask the question whether is this what will go on, will this be an online thing that we're looking at, or?
well, no, this would be an abutters guide. This really spells out everything. We could put our names on this, we could do this form and, adopt this as a,
When people get things in the mail, they don't quite understand what
yeah.
the responsibilities are or what can happen.
We had this the last meeting, and I was explaining, the process and stuff like that. But I think this document spells it out. And, if we could have this on our website, on our page, and also have copies of this, it'd be great to have this for the September meeting when folks come in and say, here,
Yeah.
this is what we do.
Well, I guess the idea was, when they send out notices, it might add to the postage, but at least they'd understand what
It would be a
it's all
full
about.
explanation of what we're doing when we do the review process.
Because this review process guide had similar language, I thought perhaps that you got this one from another town, and this was our attempt at doing the same thing. The other process, the other one, multiple sheets. Planning Board Project Review Process Guide.
I have to see who is that one.
Copy for the board. I thought one was what we were looking at and one took a shot at. I didn't know what
Well, Liz wants us, we need to review this, but I think this would be something good to adopt. Both the abutters guide and the project review process guide.
Yeah, this one here is
That's the one that we sent, Old Colony sent.
Old Colony sent this one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maureen Muncy, who was the town planner in Hanson before she came to us.
Yeah.
They used Old Colony, she used that in Hanson,
Yeah.
and I think it's great. Looks like something we would have in Citizens Planner Training Club. fact, I'll bring that up on the next board meeting and say, yeah, something like this. We're having Judy Barrett redo all the courses for that, so.
I couldn't find them on there.
You couldn't find it? They're not on the plan either?
I couldn't find them on the plan.
Oh. They're supposed to be on the plan too, aren't they? Well, I suggest we wait till the next meeting. We get, that's okay with everybody? Is that okay with everybody? I mean, we really need to have it in front of us. Thank you.
Thanks.
So do we need to file an extension on this one?
Or she just,
You approved it.
Tina, right?
all right. We go to the discussion, adding language to definitive subdivision decision letter, adding a time frame for completion. Look at that here, Liz.
I'll give you guys a couple of things. Some was from the planner's handbook. And then I gave you language from town council.
Okay. That's the letter you have in front of you from Amy Questle.
So currently, we do not include deadlines to complete work.
That's correct.
Okay.
This language, I mean, they've circled the paragraphs they wanted to circle, but it seems to be part of the whole rest of the sheet. They select, that we should select those particular paragraphs? Or-
Yeah, we should,
This is all part, because I pulled this out of the planner's handbook.
Yeah,
And the other parts are parts that are either already in there, that we already use in the decision letter, or not germane to the decision letter. So I just took out the ones that were appropriate for this conversation, and then town council gave me language that she felt would be appropriate as well.
okay.
So there were multiple sections in the planner's handbook that could be appropriate.
This came from Mass Federation of Planning and Zoning Appeals Board. Huh?
I believe so.
They're no longer with us, you know.
I know.
Oh, is that right?
Lives online.
I was on their board once upon a time.
is this something you'd like to have Dan work with? The zoning?
So this would need to be a zoning change, it wouldn't be just one of our rules or guidelines?
No, it would actually have to
This-
change the
All
subdivision
right.
rules and regulations.
Subdivision rules and regulations.
Oh, all right, so the language that they selected here, we don't have, but it's the language we could put in, when we put in,
We need to, I mean, obviously, in the case that we had earlier here this evening, I mean, that's gone on and on and on and on, and at what point do we, say, okay, we've got to go on? One of the things that made a big difference in the old days was that we billed the developer for the snow plowing all the time that they were there, and they would get a bill every year, and they didn't like getting a bill every year, and consequently, they completed the subdivisions. They don't have that. For some reason, the highway department decided it was a matter of safety or something, and they continue to plow these subdivisions, and there's no incentive for the developer to finish the project.
Do you know how many unfinished roadways we have right now? This isn't, I don't mean to quiz you, I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
I,
Aside from just Crabtree Lane.
other than what's going on right now, I don't, obviously we have all the roads that haven't been improved.
Yeah.
Which is like Veterans Place and Rosen's development up here behind Rips. Oh, what was one, Rips?
There must be a list of street, to be when a street is accepted, the town gets Chapter 90 money
Yeah,
to maintain it. So I'm sure there must be a list of streets in the town that the town isn't getting Chapter 90 money that haven't been accepted.
yeah.
Whether or not the DPW has that, or the town.
We
clerk
can,
has
we
it.
can have Liz check on
we
that
can
for
find that.
the next meeting, but I don't think there are that many, because it sort of behooves the town, and we've always tried to get the streets accepted, just for that fact, we get paid from the Commonwealth of Mass for the amount of roadway we have in town.
I know the one off of Hancock Street that the Mentor Brothers did, they were going to get that in for roadway acceptance this spring.
Sullivan Way?
Yeah, and that did not happen. So that's one, Veterans Place, the one off of Dorsey Street. These two, Endicott Street is private.
Yeah, we had the one that was
Mayflower
cul-de-sac where there was
private.
flooding issues that were here. A lot of communities do have unaccepted streets. Abington isn't an exception. It would be interesting to quantify that and find out where they are.
And I imagine if we want to advocate for this, we could always bring it up to the Board of Selectmen to have a conversation with DPW about sending bills again. We're not saying don't plow it, we're saying if we're going to plow it, then let's send them
Yeah,
bills.
I think we have every right to, I mean,
Remember there was Middleborough a few years ago, just said, we're not gonna plow unaccepted streets?
that's correct.
And that was in the paper, remember that?
Yeah, except when you have a 2-foot snowstorm and you have people who need to get to the ambulance,
Yeah.
and that becomes a problem.
Yeah, well, they were just being, we're not gonna plow the streets unless you get these
I think the
things.
better idea is to bill it.
And there are some streets in town that are that way and have been that way. They're
Yeah.
more or less rights of way, they're not really, and they plow them. But we'll put this on the agenda, we'll,
Town should plow, town should bill them.
yeah, I agree, I agree.
If they don't pay, put a lien against the property, that's all.
Yeah.
It's-
Do you want me to reach out to John Stone and get
Yes.
his feedback on that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I
All right,
wonder-
so
I wonder if
Mayflower
Old
being
Colony
the
would have a
exception.
list of those streets.
Huh?
Mayflower being the exception, since I think we own that one.
we already approved that,
Yeah, I
Did we
wonder if-
approve it? at
Oh,
town
yeah,
meeting?
that's
We
Okay.
accepted
at
them,
town
so-
meeting. We accepted it before it got completed,
Oh, good.
yeah.
I wonder if Old Colony Planning Council would have a list of unaccepted streets by town. I was curious, I can ask.
Probably not.
I can ask, I'll ask Charlie Kilmer.
All right, we'll move on to as-built inconsistency at 181 Brockton Avenue. What's he doing here?
It looked pretty serious.
Yeah.
Please.
The description looked pretty serious.
Well, it's obviously here, so.
Yeah.
You can keep that. Sure. You all have the letter and the plan, right? So, I suppose the question is, do you want to invite the developer at our September meeting, or in the meantime, send this out and ask him, or see if he can correct some of the problems?
Yes.
So,
Yes to both.
Yes, and both, yeah. I mean,
so,
I wouldn't sign off on anything.
Lisa?
I wouldn't sign off on anything.
No, we're not, no, but in any case, so we'll send a letter to the developer and ask him to be at the September meeting and complete what he can in the meantime and see what he comes up with. All right? discussion on fill being brought into 1149 Plymouth Street, and that's on Endicott Way is there, and he's right on the corner, whoever's building it. And I did go over and look at the situation. I went down Endicott Street, and there's a stockade fence that's put there with a gate. And so you really got to, you can sort of look over it or through it, and you can see there's a lot of brick and mortar that's in that area. And then out in front at 1149 Plymouth Street, you can also see some more loads of the same material, as I say, brick and mortar. So, and I'm sure it's 100 yards, just from looking at it. Out back, it's all leveled off. Out front, it's in a couple of piles.
Are they using that stuff for fill?
Yes, they are.
Can't do that.
No, you don't.
What?
Can't even, not even
Brick
allowed
and
to.
mortar is filled.
No,
Yeah.
it disintegrates, it keeps crumbling.
Huh?
It just disintegrates, it keeps crumbling.
Yeah. So,
So this is brought to our attention by a neighbor?
Yes.
Okay.
And you should have, it's not a great picture, but they did email me.
I didn't see the picture. Mine wasn't attached. Is that Apollo? Is that one of those asteroids?
That's rebar and concrete.
Dumping something.
Their concerns are, a lot, first of all, there's a well back there, and then their main concern was they were using Endicott Street to deliver the materials, and Endicott Street is a private way, obviously. And the person who owns Plymouth Street said that they were gonna put a second house back there. This is what the neighbor told me when they called.
well, it looks to me like it's obviously a gate to let something move through eventually. So a letter would be in form to tell them that we cease and desist and to remove the brick and mortar as fill.
Yeah.
Well, and shouldn't that go to the building inspector, or?
You
Well,
guys are in charge of that.
Yeah, okay, well, let's just, I mean, also back it up with something like that.
Yeah, well, it appears that they're using, I don't know if you want to call it illegal fill, but it's not,
Or
it's not fill.
even Board of Health, it's like, God.
I don't know. Usually, I was kind of wondering why some of these have bounced our way, but with the only authority is with the selectmen having the building inspector underneath them. So will we send the letter to them and the building inspector?
Well, the building inspector should get a copy of this.
Yeah, we
and
CC anything, you know,
you
maybe
can
even a
Board of
comment.
Health if you wish at the same time.
Yeah,
And that this fill is unacceptable in the town of Abington.
maybe even the Concom,
Please?
maybe even the Conservation
Well,
Commission.
conservation, as long as it's away from wetlands, I guess it's not a,
She said that there'd be a well on the site.
yeah. Oh, if there's a well on the site, that's another, yeah.
I mean, I think those three entities,
So we'll send a letter to have him remove the fill, and then if he's gonna bring in over 100 yards of fill, that he has to get a permit from the Abington Planning Board. Do we need a motion, have a motion on that?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made,
Second.
seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So moved. Request for engineering inspection at 121 Randolph Street. What's that?
That was.
That's my request.
Rick's.
So, I don't want to say 1 + 1 is 3 or anything, but the developer ran into a couple issues in Weymouth on some recent projects. And the developer has a very good working relationship with that town and the mayor. So for him to be cited, they have to be some pretty blatant things or some pretty obvious things. And the request is more, have we been checking in down there? I'm not sure in a project that scope, how often we are able to have somebody go down and just take a peek and whatnot. So that's more what the request was about, just to make sure everything's shipshape.
Because we did have a complaint
Right.
quite some time ago.
back corner,
and-
right?
And they went over and they were perfectly within what they were supposed to do
Right.
on that particular situation.
Right. So it was more just an opportunity to say, how are we reviewing the work? And if we haven't stopped by in a while, is it time to have somebody stop by?
Yeah, and basically, once a person puts a plan in, and unless, when they're doing, on roadways at least, when they're doing that, that has to be observed by, they call our engineer and observe the asphalting and the gravel fill. However, and then the last thing is the as-built plan, and that's where, obviously, many times we run into problems, and they find out that something isn't done, or if they put asphalt down and didn't have the engineer review it, then they do borings on it, and that costs the developer more money. And then they confirm that that's what it is or it isn't,
So have they made a pass through that site? Have they done, or they would go through when it's time to look at the drainage, is that what?
Well, usually they don't go in there until they're gonna do something major, and then they call in and have the engineer look at it. That's between the developer and actually they tell Liz, and Liz tells the engineer to show up and look.
Actually, for this project, you guys didn't require observation, so nobody's been down there except for that.
I just mean,
And actually, that was their engineer that went out and did work out in the corner.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
because primarily what they did here was, someone would probably just walk right past it. In Weymouth, they wanted a land that was, publicly owned.
It's typical truck driver that gets to a site and can't get in the way he wants to do it, and he finds a way to get in, and that's exactly probably what happened. I'm not sure anybody gave him permission or anything else, but he did what he needed to do. In the meantime, he went over someone else's property, which he shouldn't have done.
I was kind of wondering about that, because I know when I've had dumpsters delivered, if you're not sitting there with a check in your hand or something, they just drive away. They don't bother saying.
Yeah, I'm
"Bye,
surprised they
leave."
went and did all that, Usually they just say, you can't get in, go back.
I'm sure on 121 Randall Street, if they went down street, so have a Temple Street, because the neighbors, made sure that all the entrance to 121 was off.
Yeah, they complained about that, and then they actually put, that was a separate issue, they put the Cape Cod, put the barriers in so they
So the
can't
only
get in
access to
that way.
that site is off of Randall Street.
Right.
I guess I'm concerned on a larger project like this, that we don't have any eyes on it from essentially the time we sign the permit until the time we're going in to do the as-built. We have no idea what's happening on the site.
Except that the building inspector should, I would presume, be inspecting it all the time, but whether or not he deals with the roadways and something is a good question to ask him. I don't.
Maybe we can just ask him to go take if he hasn't already, to just go take a pass by and make sure everything is up to snuff, and if he would be so kind.
All right.
Thank you.
And discussion on drainage improvements on Carriage Hill. No one here for that. What have you got on that?
That was, we actually just received it on Friday, so you guys should have had it in the additional information I gave you. It's a plan and a letter from Larry Silva of Silva Engineering.
Some time ago, right?
Nope,
Oh, it's a new
it's
one.
brand new, I got
Oh,
it Friday.
Oh, this is it right
Yep.
here. Yeah.
Outlining
those.
what he wants to do to correct the drainage down there. So you should, I left you a copy, I just got this Friday.
Oh.
So you should have a copy there in your extra stuff.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if that was yours.
David hasn't replied yet, obviously, right?
I haven't sent it to him,
Oh.
because I just got it Friday, I didn't know
Okay,
what
yeah.
you guys wanted to, he sent it to him, and, David's on vacation this week.
Oh, okay.
All right, so I don't have any feedback from him yet.
Is this similar to the original one they came in with?
I believe so.
'Cause the problem we had on that was that it's a private road, Carriage Hill.
They've talked to some of the neighbors.
Yes.
According to the attorney for Mr. Silva, for Mr. Eno. They've spoken with some of the neighbors, the most affected ones on Carriage Hill, and they all seem to be on board with the project. They wanted the planning board's feedback on this plan before they moved any further by having a meeting with the neighbors to get their permission to go into the road.
This is essentially the plan that we saw earlier,
Yeah.
and I think at the time, was it Dave? Dave was here. or was, no. Forgotten, we start out with PMP and that, and then we switch over or something?
PMP did the original plan,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Dave has done the drainage review since the problems came up.
right. So I would suggest that if Dave approves the plan, that we have him go ahead with it, but only after Dave, if that's something you'd like to make as a motion.
I mean, a 1% slope isn't much, but if he's good with it, then
Yeah, that's.
he's the expert.
Yeah,
But my concern is just to make sure the neighbors are okay with it, since technically it's their property.
I'm sure that the attorney has made sure that that was one of the things that they had to make sure. It protects them, because they get in the water anyway. So someone want to make that motion?
Motion to require, motion to approve based on approval from Dave Johnson, and that the developers continue to get okays from the neighbors on Carriage Hill.
I'd amend that to say, review and approval of it. They're subject to, receiving comments from David on it, too.
Okay? On the motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Is there something we can take up that you, okay, I didn't recognize you over there, I know what you're here for, right? Yes, ma'am, did you have anything
Yes,
particular?
I just wanted to bring something up to the board for consideration. Last meeting that you had, there were about 30 people here that were off of Summer Street and Progress, and they were immediate butters to this project that they're thinking about going ahead with at 0 Summer Street. No one got notified.
Yeah, I really can't discuss it.
I'm using them as an example. I think that notification to abutters should be done by certified mail and not this.
Yeah, we changed our regulations because we had more complaints with certified mail because people never went to the post office to get it, and some people didn't want it and didn't see it, and we found that we have much better acknowledgement of what's going on with regular mail, because then they get it.
Well, one of these people that showed up, because I hand-delivered this to all the residences going down from Plymouth to Progress and up Progress, and that's why they showed up here.
I have a real problem with this from a technical standpoint. Actually, I shouldn't even be talking at this point because I'm in a butter. But all that needs to, if you want to stay later, because we're having a zoning, and you can bring it up
That's what you're here for. I think.
without mentioning what area it is or anything else, or what you would like to see changed in our zoning bylaws. And, because that's going to be at the end of the meeting tonight. So you can bring that up when Mr. Crane goes through some of that, because that might be related. But as far as discussing that subdivision, we can't unless we have everybody here at the public
No,
meeting.
I just use them as an example. I meant overall for certified.
Yeah, we can get into it later, but we've done that, and it's very expensive, and nobody seems to benefit from it.
Expensive to who?
It's expensive to the developer, the people that end up buying the property, because when whoever ends up living there, they're paying. The idea that developers have to pay, and the people that move in there don't have to pay, is a little bit erroneous, because they eventually pay. So as we add costs to development, the people that move in there, our citizens in Abington, end up paying the price. So that's one of the reasons. And we find that people that get regular mail will see it. Now, they may not even open it and throw it out, but at least they get it. But when it comes to certified mail, probably 50% of the people that we send certified mail to don't ever see it.
I'll wait till the end of the meeting.
Please?
I'll wait till the end
Yeah,
of the meeting.
sure.
And I'll go over, because
Thank you.
I don't agree with you.
Thank you. And one of the other things, it's not on our I thought it might be on agenda, on Phil, on Rockland Street, then that's, I'm sure that's what you're here for, Mr. Mann.
I got a
Yeah,
letter regarding
yeah,
that.
please come forward. That's on, we had a complaint,
Talk about it.
please?
You can't talk.
We can't talk about it? Oh, because
It's not on the agenda.
it's not on the agenda? Okay. But,
Well, if we don't, we can listen to it, can't we?
please?
No.
You can't have the conversation without it on the
Oh,
agenda.
we can have at least the conversation that a letter was sent out from the planning board on Phil, on Rockland Street, and on mining or something, and that's why Mr. Mann is
They
here.
said mine.
Huh?
I couldn't hear, I'm sorry.
They said mining, that was the complaint, and so we sent it out. It's unfortunate that, you know, Lee is
Well,
showing up.
could I say one thing, seeing I got the letter, or no?
I'm sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, but anyway, if you...
So what do I need to do, what do I need to do now
If
then?
you-
If I got a
if-
letter, I'd like to know what I gotta.
Right, if you would just send a letter to the planning board telling them, as an example, our bylaws say that you can't bring or ship out more than 100 cubic yards of material,
In or out,
in or out.
even if it's registered as a farm?
That you'd, it would, even though if it's in the agricultural practices, that'd be one thing,
Well,
and,
it's in the process of agricultural practices.
right, I understand, but
Our
it
bylaws
doesn't,
are online. You'd be
Sorry?
Our bylaws are online. You'd be able to
Okay,
look them up.
no problem.
Access them. And just, when you write the letter, just cite a reference to the section of the zoning bylaws that it refers
It's
to.
a general bylaw.
General
It's the
bylaw.
dumping bylaw under our general bylaws.
Okay,
Okay, that's where it outlines what's required.
No
If you
problem.
need an application, it's online, but you can call me at the planning office. I'll be happy to email you one.
okay.
Okay?
Mining is a term, because it deals like gravel excavation.
Yeah,
It's a term,
mining's-
a planning term. It's not like coal mining or something.
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, have a good
Appreciate
day.
it, thank you. On the zoning bylaws, zoning agenda, zoning board agenda.
The thing that stood out to me about the zoning bylaws is just a comment that they should make sure there's at least 2 parking spots on site for those in-law apartments. It's on the because 2 of them have to do with adding in-law apartments. That's what they're going to the zoning board for. On the zoning board
Oh, right,
agenda.
Yeah, right. One of them, however, is on Harrison, and we're the permitting authority rather than the zoning board, so a letter should go to them telling them that it should come before the planning board rather than the zoning board of appeals.
Oh, I didn't read it that way. I assumed it was just they were just bringing an in-law in.
You're talking about 200 Green Street and 71 Murphy Street,
Right,
and you want to make sure there's sufficient parking,
yes. So they're not, keep them off the street.
and then you were talking about the planning
34
board
Harrison,
is the special permit granting authority for non-residential use,
right,
and you want me to include that as well, right?
right.
Okay.
And you all know that the relative attendance is allowable, as long as they renew it every year. But that's a good point. If they haven't got parking, that's a good question. I don't know.
It's probably something, I'm
It'll come up
sure,
before us.
it could be something they're thinking about, but it's the most apparent thing in my mind is
Yeah,
keeping them off the street.
good point. Anything further?
I think I gave you guys, as part of the zoning review, because there was some concern about the butter notification,
Right.
and Bruce provided,
Yeah.
Gary
Muncie.
Munson, some information on a letter they send out with their hearing notices. And I found a copy of that with somebody else's, some other town, which is basically identical, but it's all filled out. So just so you guys could see that, and if you wanted to have them move forward with some sort of amendment to the abutter notification when we update the zoning bylaw.
Yeah. Is that okay with everybody? Great, we'll have it all, rather than have it all hodgepodge and do it here. Is there, do you have anything else, Liz? Anything else?
Are we still talking? Yeah.
Dan's gonna be next, yeah. So I'll turn it over to you, Dan, and you can go on this.
Well, the planning board has reserved a portion of their meeting to hear from the public any suggestions for zoning bylaw amendments. And my role in this is to hear these suggestions and then to codify them and then meet with the board to see which are appropriate for adoption and further crafting some amendments that would be referred to the town meeting for approval. So we're here to hear you, and if you identify yourself and you can be very specific about what you're requiring, that would be very helpful.
No, I can't mention any properties.
I'm sorry?
I can't mention any properties, of which mine was one. But anyway.
Can you come up here to where there's a microphone, please?
Yeah.
And as a preface before we speak, we met with one of your neighbors and who gave us a very detailed explanation of what was wrong with the notification process. So what you say might be duplicating what you already said, but go right ahead.
All right.
Name and address?
Oh, I'm sorry, Karen Bowen, 937 Plymouth Street, Abington. I know that it might be a little bit of an expense at $3.65 for the developer, but who are we trying to protect here? The people who are the town payers, the taxpayers and the residents of Abington, or the new people that are coming in that want to do the building? I mean, that's an inexpensive thing on their part, $3.65. I myself got a certificate of mailing, allegedly, which I never received. This was 2 years ago. Now, I keep everything. I'm a pack rat. If I had gotten a certified return receipt letter, it's like a legal notification, and I'd have that in my file cabinet that's like 5 feet tall. And I went to the post office today and talked to the postmaster, and he actually printed that out, which is the definition of certificate of mailing and the certified mail. And as I said, in all fairness, people who are the abutters should be notified and be, you know, and that states, this states here. This is part of your notice of hearings for the Conservation Commission.
Could I?
This is the planning board?
I know it is, but why? What's good for the goose isn't good for the
No,
gander?
we don't.
I'm just
When you
showing
said you
you.
got a certificate of mailing, it wouldn't have come for us, because we don't do certificate of mailings, we either do the green cards or just regular.
Okay.
Yeah, so
But what I'm saying is, in here it says that, and I know this is for the Conservation Commission, but it says that therefore by delivery of hand or certified mail, receipt requested to all abutters within 100 feet of the property line of the land where the activity is proposed, if the mailing address is shown on the most recent applicable tax list. So if the Conservation Commission has to abide by this, how come you?
That's their regulations that they have, and we promulgate our regulations for the planning board.
Okay.
So they're different boards.
Could you be specific in what you're requesting?
I'm requesting that if anybody has any kind of
You're
building.
requesting that
That
abutters be notified by certified mail.
return receipt, yes. And that way it covers not only the builder, because he has proof that, here, I gave you notification, so if you didn't do anything about it, there's nothing you can do about it now. But then it also gives the people the opportunity to have something. I mean, I know a lot of people get a little nervous about going to get a piece of certified mail at the post office, but at least you know for sure it was attempted. The other one, the certificate of mailing, all it does is you bring the mail to the post office, give it to the clerk, and he says, okay, you dropped it off. The postmaster told me himself, he said, we don't even know if it's sorted correctly. We get more of that stuff back. So it's just a consideration to take so that everybody's crossed their Ts and dotted their Is in the communication process.
Is our current requirement that it's just a butters? Is it a butters of a butters within 300 feet? Just a direct to butters? Okay. Let me see if I can say this delicately. There's a project in town that has exposed a flaw of that strategy because the direct abutters are just about all municipal or state agencies. The abutters of abutters are all the residents. So, I think there's a need to take a look at how we request, who we request notification to, because I think abutters of abutters can be just as impacted as direct abutters. And frankly, it never hurts to get more information out there. And frankly, I don't care if developers have to pay an extra few dollars.
Thank you.
They're gonna make the money back by putting.
Well, there's two different situations. One is certified mail and one is regular mail. And just so I can clarify myself again, is that regular mail is a simple process. Most people get their mail. Obviously, some people can say they didn't get the mail, but I have been on this board and seen it on many times. We've had more complaints with certified mail than we have with regular mail.
But you're talking about two different things. You're talking about extending the distance
Yeah,
beyond.
I'd be okay saying first-class mail, proof you delivered first-class mail, but then also expand the net of people who are getting notifications.
Yes.
I don't think notification is a bad thing, no matter how wide you can do it. I mean, if we lived in a precinct, I'd say notify everybody in the precinct, but, that's a little crazy in a town like Abington.
It does depend on the project, but I can see.
But some projects deserve larger notification than just the butters.
Like the Zero Summer Street is obviously huge.
I don't want to mention name in particular,
Yeah.
but,
But it's because of how much area it
Yeah.
takes up, yeah.
yeah.
But there have to be limits on it. We had, I think part of the conversation last time, I mean, I was getting that I thought people thought that the whole town should be notified on this project, and you can't do that, you've
No,
got
that's not what I'm asking.
you got to quantify the area that you would, notify people.
I would request, as we move forward, to at least consider abutters of abutters as a bare minimum.
And I would like you to consider doing the certified return receipt for the people whose property is impacted on the border. I mean, if you're my neighbor, as is a house down from me that is putting in a house behind a house, he sent me certified return receipt. I talked to him, I know what his project is, I signed off on it. Now he knows that he has sort of given me a certified letter and he's all clear. I can't argue the point. But, there's a lot of impact around here going on with a lot of the property. I mean, even Mr. LaPointe, who's a huge developer in the town, went up and down Plymouth Street and visited every neighbor for about a quarter mile down on either side to say, this is what we're doing. I don't want to make enemies. I don't want to have a horrible impact. Anything that we can help you with.
This is what we generally, when people come to this board, lots of times, they get our feeling on a project, and it's something I've been on this board for a long time, Wayne has, we all have. We tell them, go out and talk to the neighbors, and just, have something and talk to them. It's not required in our regs, but to me, it's a good thing to be able to do, so the developers can say, look, we're gonna be doing this. And that's, to me, is reaching out to the community to do a project.
Well, actually, I'm glad you brought that up, Bruce, because we do that when projects like this size or other projects that are controversial, and this is the first time anybody's ever getting to hear about it. When they went away, that the large project there, that what Kim say, I don't know, that we told them basically that they got to do a town meeting type of thing where they've got to meet with all the complainers and hear what everybody has to say so they can address it or know what they're up against. So they it's really important that they hear it all and work out a lot of that educational part of it
first, then bring it in.
a neighborhood meeting, because I don't want somebody watching this at home on television saying, we're gonna have a town meeting to discuss a project. Because a town meeting is a very different deal
Yeah,
than a neighborhood meeting.
Is that the extent of what you're here for?
Well, yeah, because I didn't get certified mail, and
We don't
you know,
always talk about specifics here. We're talking about a zoning bylaw amendment that would apply to all projects.
Yeah,
So,
it's
yeah.
little to ask of a developer that wants to make millions and millions of dollars on the town to put out $3.65 to maybe 20 different homes that are in the immediate area. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to me.
Yeah.
Chair.
Oh, that's all right, thank you.
Thank you for coming.
On the other thing, you've seen the letter that was on Facebook? You-
Yeah, I actually, Liz emailed me, and I had a copy of Sean Riley's letter, but I didn't have a copy of all the information from Facebook, which I have since gotten, so.
What letter is this?
You sent out, Rick, something on Facebook about...
The about zoning amendments, apparently Andy Burbine responded to it.
Yeah.
As did Sean Riley, so I.
I missed the Sean Riley one.
Yeah,
I have all those comments. In fact, what surprised me, and I was going to tell this to the board, I've met with several individuals privately to talk about zoning bylaw amendments, development in the town, Andy Burbine being one of them, and one of his law associates there, was it, his name, Donald Began, is it?
Dennis Bergen?
Dennis Bergen, yeah, Dennis Bergen. And surprisingly enough, this issue never came up in all our conversations, so it was really surprising to me that he felt so strongly about this issue.
So, we exchanged emails a little bit more today. I will forward to Liz the additional exchanges we had. He gets into his reasoning behind some of it. My question to him was, why can't the zoning board just adopt a policy of not approving waivers? Variances.
Variances.
And is this something we need to just maybe adopt stricter regulations for the approval of one? I know that there is kind of a blanket list of reasons why you should approve one based on the MGLs. But do we need to go a step further if we really want to crack down on them in their use in Abington? So he says because the boards can change, it might be better just to have a complete blanket refusal to grant variances.
That's an extreme measure.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think that you should consider is that in requesting a variance, the developer should be showing that there's some hardship involved. And that's the basis for really granting the variance. And I think it provides the public with a safety valve for the strict interpretation of the bylaw. So if you say there's no variances will be granted, that's a pretty extreme step. And it requires then that the developer then take another route, which would be costly. So I think we will discuss this later, but
I guess my question is, since our language has been written however many years ago, have other towns started using updated language that maybe strengthens it or clarifies when they should be adopted or approved? And maybe that's what we should look at, is there new language that we should just to tweak it? I wouldn't necessarily be supportive of a blanket, because then you're gonna have that one instance come into town that makes sense, and we can't do it, and
Yeah.
then it causes a problem. So, I don't know if just in past 10, 20 years, there's been other communities who have adopted new language that makes more sense, maybe.
Of course, Dan knows.
I haven't seen the language, but it's either a case of you do or you don't. Either you permit variances or you don't permit them. And if you condition, how would you condition them?
More, what the criteria is for when they can be approved. So right now,
Well,
it's,
it's
a
a
hardship
hardship.
with the land, and it doesn't impact the general character of the community or surrounding neighborhood, whatever that language is, that criteria.
Well, my conversation with Mr. Negrelli, who I guess is very rigid in his consideration of these variances, that he felt that there was an extreme position 10 or so years ago that the zoning board of appeals was too liberal in granting these variances. Now the pendulum has swung the other way, and so if it swung the other way, where is the problem today?
And that was my question. And
Where
and
is the problem?
The response was it could swing back.
Yeah.
A new board of
But
selectmen.
really, doesn't
and-
that represent the will of the people? These people run on a platform when they try.
Well, they're appointed.
Not
They're
really.
appointed.
Yeah.
The zoning board of appeals is appointed by the selectmen. And the other thing is, it just one, I mean, there's 3 people on it, which I might suggest that maybe should be 5 people on it. Because all you have to do is have one person disapprove of it, and despite the fact that it's a two-thirds vote one way and 1/3 votes the other, and it doesn't pass because they actually have veto power, one person.
I was wondering who set that I thought that was just a town thing we do, where 3 people sit
The number on
and
the
don't say
zoning board of
anything?
appeals would be a town thing, but legislature requires you to have a zoning board of appeals.
Well, yeah, but how many people does it tell you that you have to
I think
have?
you could have 5, I'm sure you
That's a
could.
town charter.
That's a town
That's
charter.
a town charter thing. Okay.
So my request would be, in order to collaborate with our fellow boards, is to keep this on the back burner in terms of issues that we're considering, and ask them to provide some evidence, testimony, proof of the need for the change, so that we're not saying no, but we're saying, give us a reason why this is a good idea. If that's okay with the rest of the board.
That's fair enough, yeah.
We would be making a request of the zoning board to do that?
Yeah.
You don't think they'll see that as, we're being helicopter parents?
We have a request from one of their members to consider this.
Oh,
So we're going to ask the board to provide us some information as to why it would make sense.
The other thing is, we're going to have this after each planning board meeting for the next few months, and it's going to be on the agenda. If someone has something they like or dislike or want to have changed, they should come before this board.
Now, this is a more appropriate forum than Facebook, I think, coming to this meeting and discussing this, because not everybody gets Facebook, Rick, and not everybody gets the forums that you're on with it. So that's sort of limiting the discussion, where if they come in here, they're gonna be on television, they can talk to us.
I'm not telling people to have
Yeah.
conversations on Facebook.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to.
Yeah, but I've seen the conversations on Facebook about this. So,
Did you have any attendees at your event last month?
Yes.
You did? Okay. Could you summarize some of their concerns or some of the issues that they
Well,
discussed?
it was primarily about these notifications. I mean, that was the hot button, and most of the people here were, for the
certified, yeah.
the station development. So that was the hot button here, so. And really, the most significant comments I've had has been sitting down with these individuals and getting comments directly from Sean Riley and from developers and so forth. So, I mean, I'm going to go through the bylaw, but I don't expect that the public is going to have too many suggestions unless they've encountered something that has affected them individually and that they have a problem with. So we'll see what comes out,
I had wondered about that question. I just recently went before the planning board in Taunton, and they require that you send letters out for 300 feet around the property that's being considered. So I'm not sure where it seems to be an arbitrary number that people come up with just to choose as a barrier how far out those notices go. What do you think?
I think that's a fair radius, you know, that you extend the radius in it for, you know, more people. And I think abutters to abutters is a good suggestion. That's reasonable. I don't know about certified mail, though. I think that's...
I didn't do certified mail, but I can't tell what the response was. When you don't get any response, you don't know whether they read it and just decided not to answer.
We have had far less problems since we went regular mail. I can't tell you how many times people went over and over, well, I never got it. Well, I didn't go to the post office. Well, I'm not gonna go down or I wasn't home, or went to the, it's, and even on regular first-class mail, if it doesn't get to that person, it usually comes back from the post office department to the town hall. So, the same thing should be true of certified, although it probably takes longer. They keep it in the post office for a while.
And sometimes you run into a, peculiar situation where, like this one, there aren't too many abutters. So,
Yes.
that's a problem.
I'm sure everybody on just about everybody on Progress Street got notified, but then there's all open land on the other side of Progress Street. I mean, there's probably one land, well, there's a couple. But and then across the street, you have the apartment houses in there. I don't know where that goes. And, it's a lot of, but, and that's the other thing that I don't think a lot of people realize is the developer brings all the self-addressed stamped envelopes to the planning board, and the planning board brings that mail to the post office. The developer doesn't. So
It assures that
the post office got it at
gets to the
least.
post office, yeah.
Couple other issues.
Sure.
I think we need to discuss our multi-family housing policy for commercial highway districts, particularly Route 18, if we want to continue to allow these multi-family housings as part, by right, which I think they're allowed by now. I'm not so sure, because we're giving up potential commercial land for residential. And I don't think we want this style, up and down Route 18, which is the little pockets of townhouses up and down the roadway, that if we want to preserve housing as an option, that it should be a bigger scale, depending on the parcel. But I don't think our intention is to have 3 to 5 unit townhouse pockets up and down Route 18. That'd be one thing to talk about at some point. And the second is there anything we can be doing in our downtown districts to encourage development, which has seen nothing for 10 years? And I know we redid that language 10 years ago with the hope of encouraging some investment, but nothing's happening. So I don't know if it's just the landlords don't want to put the money in, or if there's a fatal flaw in our zoning, or what it is, but neither of our downtown districts has seen any investment.
Well, there's tax incentive programs that are in existence that would encourage that kind of development, that would support that, but nobody's taken that opportunity.
Yeah.
I think one of the problems here, in discussing some of these development issues with people, is that the town needs to have a better business-friendly kind of place here, so that somebody coming to town hall that wants to either expand their business or start a business has an opportunity to avail themselves of a wealth of information. There's no way to do that right now in town hall. And I think, I've talked to Rick about it, and I think there's a number of things that could be done. There's assistance from the Small Business Development Council, the
Seed Corporation.
excuse me?
Seed Corporation,
Seed
SBA.
Corporation, there's a lot of things that would be available to not only current business operators, but potential ones that they could avail themselves of. So, not only what are available financially or business, business information that they could use that would be helpful.
Actually-
Now, one of the things we discussed is developing a directory of business in the town, so that if you were a pizza shop owner or something, and you wanted to establish, how many pizza shops are in town?
6, 7.
So that if you had an inventory of all the businesses here, a business directory, and I've already taken steps with the town clerk to, she has a, they give out business permits. And what they were asking previously didn't really give you that much information. So I've designed a new sheet that she has, so that when a business it comes in for a permit, they give them more information on what they do, the street address and so forth. So that would be very helpful if you were coming into the town hall and saying, what kind of businesses are available that would be like the one I want to establish. That would be very helpful information. And then, go on from there.
Well, Old Colony Planning Council a few years ago wrote how to do, if you want to start a business in the town. We did this for several communities. And it's somewhere where we did this, like if you wanted to start a business in Abington, and it lists several kinds of businesses, retail, car dealership, liquor store, and stuff like that. We did this for several communities. So that's somewhere. I mean, that's something that's been done in the last few years. So like if someone comes in the town hall and wants to start a business, they can access this document, and it's a step-by-step process to take them through how to do this. This is something that exists. Maybe it just it's been filed away someplace. It used to be on the town website, I know that. So, I mean, that's a guide. But I think, a lot of this is, there hasn't been a demand for business in North Abington Center, for example.
I think we have to, also look at what's happening. There's a lot of brick and mortar stores that are closing.
Yeah.
And if you look at a lot of these strip malls, a lot of them have vacancies at the moment. What do you see in the strip malls now? Public, personal services, beauty salons, barber shops, nail salons, liquor stores.
Well, how long did it take, that strip plaza that's up on 18 near Barris? How long, that took forever. They put a dollar store in there.
Yeah.
The folks who owned it came before us, of course, Route 18 being done, it kind of screws up things on Route
And
18.
there's been a tremendous change in the way people purchase things now. There's a lot of purchases directly on the internet, so people don't go to a store anymore. They just go on the internet and buy something and ship to their home.
So, I mean, if there's vacancies in existing strip malls, like I'm thinking of the one on Route 18, I'm thinking of the one in Abington Center now where the hair salon has just moved across the street to where the brewery was. Brewery's moved to another location. So there's vacant space, where the post office is up in Abington Center and the 7-Eleven. So, I mean, if there's vacant space in existing shopping venues, I hear you as far as wanting to, why aren't people going into that piece of land next to the barber shop in North Abington Center, between that and the restaurant? I mean, that's been sitting there vacant forever. When we did this bylaw to encourage the town centers, it was the thought, but, where the theater was redeveloped, he was supposed to put something in there, and that's all residential. There has to be a demand for the space.
Yeah.
And I hear you. I'm disappointed that retail and stuff like that didn't go into those districts we created, but there has to be a demand for it.
Well, it's not saying retail. I said commercial space.
Or commercial, I mean, there has,
But let's step back for a second. That some of it is a factor of the property owner. The reason that strip mall stayed open was because they were asking for exorbitant rents, and finally Dollar Tree said, fine. They were asking for, I know a number of businesses who asked about going in there, and they were completely priced out because of what they were demanding for rent. So that's not a demand issue.
Which one is this, Rick?
This was where the Dollar Tree went into.
Okay.
But before anything was in there, I know a couple of business owners who looked to get space in there and said that the price they're asking was twice as high as anything else in Abington.
Well, the other thing that they were also doing is that people, they wouldn't give a long lease, I know at one time, but the person that was gonna go in there had to put up their own money to renovate it, and they really had no lease. In other words, they had a yearly lease, and they could spend any amount of money. That was one of the problems I know they had. And then the other thing that held that up for a long time was sewage. There was no sewage connection.
Well, go up to where the Target is in the Stop and Shop. There's been a pad site next to the Target that's been available for, now that's got super high traffic counts. It's 123. You got a Target and a Stop and Shop. But that, you know, I'm talking about that pad site next to the Target. That's sat vacant for a long time.
Right.
Again, there has to be demand for this land that's available in order for somebody to go in there, and it's zoned appropriately. I think that someone would want to go in there.
And it's gotta be priced right. That's
It's got to be priced right.
So Bruce, with your background, is your suggestion to throw our hands up and say, well, nothing we can do?
No, I'm not saying that at all, Rick. What I'm saying is there has to be demand.
So all the
And you
traffic
can't,
is down?
and you can't create demand artificially. Demand has to be generated by people who are interested in doing business in the community. And if you, and you're totally, you know, I think you mischaracterize what I'm saying, and I'm kind of insulted by saying that you think that I said we should throw our hands up. I'm not saying that at all.
I'm looking for suggestions.
Yeah, I'm just saying that this is the situation. We have to acknowledge the situation that we have, and then we can find out ways to work on it.
I think there are a number of things you can do in a proactive way. One is to say, keep an inventory of all the vacant available retail space, commercial space in town. That's something that can be compiled and done. And let's face it, I think the town has been handicapped because they do not have that person in town hall to do that kind of thing. There's a lot of things that could be done, and there should be like a one-stop center here in town hall that somebody says they want to start a business or they want to expand their business. What do I have to do, or what kind of assistance is available? That information should be right here. And there should, you know, if you come into town hall where you wander about and say, where should I go? You go to the building department and say, go to the selectman's office.
Well, Town of Bridgewater's planner, for example, is an economic development officer in the town. We don't have a town planner in this town. You know, there isn't anyone who could give, I mean, even that book that I cited, How to Start a Business in Town, that should be available on the website, but most of the communities that have town planners, they're also an economic development officer, and we don't have that in Abington.
Yeah, I share that kind of,
So you're saying both things, you, the data and someone to
Someone to actually
reach out.
help, yeah,
whatever you want to call the person.
yeah.
Yeah.
There has to be somebody in town hall, other than the town manager or the planning board secretary, that's able to provide that information.
Yeah, Stephanie Danielson, for example, is the Jennifer Burke is the town planner in Bridgewater, and they're in the paper every day about economic development projects that are happening in Bridgewater and Easton. And because those towns have been proactive, and they've hired someone who's not only a town planner, but also manages economic development in the town. So, I mean, that's a proactive way of addressing the issue that you're bringing up here, Rick, is to have someone.
And, you know, I think that kind of person would meet with the land, you know, the owner of that strip mall and say, is it better to keep it vacant and not get any income? Or to lower the rent and you know, fill it up? But that's a personal decision that the guy makes.
I mean, I'm all on board on a town planner. It was last year that I brought up the idea of going to the selectmen and saying, at least give us a part-time, or let's go to Rockland and Whitman and see if we
I'm
can
not
share one.
campaigning for a job either.
No,
Let me
but-
put
but
that to rest.
And interestingly, at their last meeting, the Board of Selectmen brought up again, well, maybe we should go talk to Rockland about a town planner, sharing a town planner, because the needs are the same. Trust me, I am all aboard. This town needs a town planner. I mean, that's no doubt in my mind.
But, you know, in order to sell it to a town meeting floor, you know, the position would have to be written, and I mean, I'd look at the job description that Stephanie has in Easton or Jennifer has in Bridgewater, to have, you know, the economic development function written into the job description.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, this town is facing having to hire a town manager, having several positions to fill right now, but, you know, increasing the tax base is important too. And, you know, and these,
That person could also work with the Abington Business, the Abington Business Council hasn't met, I don't think, in a year.
you know, but there is an Abington Business
And there
Council.
again, that would encourage the present business owners. Now, we're not talking just about retail space here, we're talking about commercial development as well.
Yeah.
Office space, so forth. So, find out a big step in that direction is just find out what we have in town already and what kinds of businesses are available, you know, in town, and what kind of space is available in town, either rental space or vacant space so if I come in and I say, where can I locate, what's available?
One of the towns I was going to bring up was Easton, because they seem to be doing a good job with their, I think they've got a village center at the very least, a couple of village centers.
Well, you got Doug King, they've zoned, Easton's an amazing community. They don't have sewer, but they've tied in the five corners to Norton. And this developer, Doug King, has done they've created special zoning districts, and they've built package plants and covered it. And Stephanie she's a very proactive person, just as Jennifer is in
What
Bridgewater.
happened there to kick that all off, Bruce, is that they had some residential development, they had the market
Yeah,
come in there, and then the restaurant said, well, there's a market there for restaurant. There's-
but they had to have the sewer too, you know, and they had to build a
and
package.
they
plant.
got the sewer from the developer.
But that's what I want to know, is what has Easton done well that we can copy? Because
Well,
we have the
We
traffic.
got sewer in East.
We have the
got-
traffic
We
coming
got
through.
sewer in Abington, we got water in Abington. It needs somebody to sell the tax incentive program to the business people, the property owners, and saying, this is what you can do with the tax incentive. If you improve your property, we'll keep the taxes at this standard rate for a while. And then, maybe you can attract a nice restaurant in North Abington that'll attract people.
Rick, here's an example. I'm working right now with the town of Kingston, and they're trying to increase commercial development in the town. They're going for they need to expand their sewage treatment plant, wastewater treatment plants, $22 million. They're going for 1.9 from the federal government. But this is one of the suggestions from Deborah Bevan, who's the Economic Development Representative, U.S. Economic Development Administration, and something I suggested, take all the industrially zoned, get a map of all the commercially zoned land in town, and mark on that the acreage and the build-out potential and the number of potential employees and where this stuff is located and where the infrastructure is, water, sewer, gas, electric. This is something that a planner with an economic development incentive could do this, to identify areas in town. It's not just, I know we have a lot more than Route 18 if you want to do all, and 123, as far as the commercially zoned areas. But it would be great, wouldn't it be great to have a map that would show this available land, or, what's available, what's the build-out potential, what are the infrastructure, and this comes down to having someone in town hall who can, has GIS skills, all this mapping skills that you can do this sort of thing. I mean, Old Colony Planning Council could probably generate such a map, but it would be better to have someone in town hall that could do this sort of thing.
I mean, when I think of Abington, I think the fact we have a growing, somewhat affluent community that has the median income higher than the region, that we have 4 state highways coming through our town, and so above average traffic flow. We have sewer, we have water. Okay, what's missing here? We're not Hanson, we're not a rural community that has, people that don't go through it all the time.
Well, we also have to deal with sewer and water monitoring.
in the past, Plymouth County Development Council used to assist communities in providing a little brochure, you know, what we have to offer and so forth, you know. Something like that might be helpful as well, you know, to have available. So say, this is the advantage, you know, saying what the tax rate is, what, you know, it's a business-friendly community.
Metro South Chamber, and I have it on my desk at work, they have community profiles for all the communities that are covered in the district, and Abington's in there, and there's a page, have you seen this? They have a page that has the tax base, you know, all this stuff, everything that you're talking about, Dan, and it's available in the literature, but it's not, there's no resource here in Town Hall. I mean, I know where to get it because I'm a planner and so does Dan, but it's out there.
Yeah, you need a focal point in Town Hall, is basically what you need. And somebody that can field those calls, you know, and that, and be responsive to it, and follow up, you know. And not only follow up, but maybe, you know, contact, you know, I know when I was working here, we had, you know, Cumberland Farms looking at, you know, and I've seen they've done some nice developments, you know. They were interested in Abington. Yeah, you're right, there's a lot of traffic that travels through town. And the town's not taking advantage of it.
And that's what Rick was talking about earlier, is the fact we're filling it up with housing rather than businesses.
Yes, yeah.
And that, some of that's been done through the zoning board, too.
I was gonna say, that kind of comes back to that.
But I mean, you know, if we had a planner, they put these notices out, there's a statewide industrial site thing that I get through, I think, Mass Development or whatever. But I mean, there's resources that communities could list sites on and things like that, make people aware of it at a state level. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of resources out there.
Part of what I'm doing, part of what I'm going to be doing, you know, I'm going to be developing an economic development supplement to the master plan, and I've talked to Rick about this, and some of these things that I've been throwing out here are going to be incorporated in that document, you know, as a supplement to the master plan. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that can be done on a proactive basis that would make Abington more appealing, and we should be using, you know, what resources we can muster toward that objective.
So, I'll share a quick story. I had a conversation with someone who represents retail marijuana facilities, not anyone that we've met with, someone completely else, different. And they said their client looked at Abington and was told there was no land available. And I kind of laughed. I'm like,
Who told them that?
exactly. Who told them that? It was a property owner. Says, no, we're all full. And I don't think there's any other available land in town. So they looked for somewhere else.
He's an anti-marijuana person.
Well, the other thing is, it's sort of like Facebook, and people say things, and they're going to the wrong person to get the information from. But John Q. Public out there, I suppose, and even you think a developer would ask more questions and go to the right people. But I know what you're saying, Rick. I mean, you hear all sorts of rumors, and some people take it for gospel rather than going to the right source.
Well, I think you heard some of it too at that last meeting. You know, some of the people like the town the way it is. They don't want to see development.
Yeah.
So, you know, they know the town that they've lived in for 30 years, and they like what they have, and they don't want to see development. So you gotta, you know, you gotta balance these things.
I mean, Wayne would tell you, Wayne and I have probably lived in the town longer than anybody on this board, and the changes that we've seen in the course of our lifetimes. I mean, the little town that you moved to when you came here in the 50s, and me too, when I came here in the 50s. I'm that old, yes. And the town has changed.
Yes.
A lot. And towns do change.
Sewer probably changed the town as much as anything did. All of a sudden, undevelopable land became developable.
I think that was the biggest thing, you know, everybody thought when the rail came, I said, no, I've always told people in communities, the availability of sewer. I mean, Hanson, we're looking at Old Colony Planning Planning Council again. We're looking at doing some sort of sewer on 27 where the old Ocean Spray plant was near the commuter rail. And, of course, where the Ocean Spray plant was, there's a lot of wetlands there. But, I mean, that would require a package plant of some kind to do that. But, I mean, East Bridgewater, they've been able to extend the line from the package plant that they built for the high school and the town hall to serve the Carriage Crossing Shopping Center. But sewer is an issue in Abington, and the availability of the sewer and the water. That's still, even though we do have sewer and water, we still need to have that signed off on, We don't have unlimited capacity, and that's something that we have to look at as far as economic development in the town. Would there be enough sewer capacity and water capacity for a business or a shopping center or something? And you look at the demand for housing. Hanover Mall, and I've sat through those hearings, the retail's gone away. They're gonna put like 277 housing units there. Kingston Mall, same deal right now. They wanna put housing in that. It's balancing off the demand for commercial and retail versus the demand for housing and stuff like that, and there's a hell of a demand for housing in the region too. But we need to have a tax base, I totally get that, a commercial industrial tax base. It's just, if we had someone in town hall, if we could do some of this work that Dan and I have talked about as far as identifying land and putting this out there and saying, to that person who said there's no land in Abington, well, that's not true. We have X parcels and stuff like that. But we need to have someone to be able to get this information out. I'm not volunteering, I have a good
Just say,
job.
I'll make a motion to hire somebody.
Speaking of the master plan, I saw Rick thumbing through the Conway report. My suggestion to the chairman was that the board consider adopting that at the October meeting and giving it an official status, and then recommending to the, I told you, I think it's a very good job, and it was a good opportunity to update the land use and cultural and natural features elements of the master plan. And I think it should be adopted by the board and then referred to the Board of Selectmen for adoption and endorsement. And then put on your website with an explanation by the board that this is a partial updating of the master plan. These are key elements of the master plan that have been updated, and that the reader should refer to the other elements of the master plan that was done in 2009. So that's my suggestion to you, and
Do we have an extra copy or two that's in the library that we can refer people to?
No, because we haven't adopted it or anything. It's presently, it's to the
it
planning
doesn't have
board.
any real status at the moment. So if the board adopts it, it gives it,
We were originally going to do that,
and
and
it's an official status, and then it would be transmitted to the Board of Selectmen for adoption, then given to the library and so forth.
I guess the question is, do we want people to be able to see and review before we give it an official status? Just in case.
Well, I mean, let's look at the process that was done. There were a number of public hearings, public meetings that the Conway School held, that the people participated in. So it really, they were part and parcel of the making of that portion of the master plan. They got their input at that point. I think that they had some meetings after that, didn't they?
well, two meetings, two
Yeah.
public meetings, yes. Well, actually, three, I guess.
Didn't they discuss their findings in a public meeting? Or- No?
Not really. They said what they were coming up with, and it was all discussed, and I think everything that was discussed was really, is presented in that report. They did an excellent job of,
No, I think this is
Bringing
wonderful, and I think
everything
people will be excited to see this or read this.
yeah.
But just for openness sake, I didn't know if that should be part of the step, is that we at least give an opportunity to download it, review it online, check it, check it out in the
Well,
library.
that could be done prior to the October meeting. I talked to Liz, and I was able to put it on a Word program, but I don't know how, I don't know how that would print out.
Yeah, our original thing was that we would do this, and then we'd get the rest of it from Dan, and then we'd put it all together in one form.
Right.
But Dan's suggesting that we approve that, or get it approved, and then continue on with the rest of it, yeah.
Well,
And certainly, it's,
Actually, if we put it on the website now and make it available to the public, that's, prior to the board action, that's perfectly fine.
Just specifically state this is draft.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
is that something the board would like to do, is put it out as a draft on the website? We have a motion made and seconded to do that?
I'd make the motion to put that on the website.
Motion made,
Second?
seconded. Any further discussion? In that case, for the vote to put it out on, as a draft, please say aye.
Aye.
So moved. Anything else, Dan?
No, that's it.
Great. Motion to adjourn would be in order.
Can we decide,
Yes.
can we come up with something that we tell Bob that he volunteered for while he wasn't here?
I didn't quite hear you. What was that?
Come up with something to tell Bob that you volunteered him for while he wasn't.
Oh, yeah, no, just because he didn't show up, we're not gonna be able to do that unless you can come up with something.
That he's gonna work with Dan.
You had something, Rick?
My understanding is the mayor of Weymouth sent us a letter about the retail marijuana locations.
I don't know anything about it.
He sent it to the town manager regarding, but there's no application pending before the planning board.
Right.
So there's no information I can give them, their planning officer's called.
No, I thought he also CC'd the chairman on that as well. No?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
You
The
know-
town manager has the letter, I'll be happy to look at it. If there was a
Okay.
carbon copy to the board, I'll ask him to send it and I'll send it to you guys.
You mentioned, you bring that up, and I was wondering how out of the blue, these two stores come up that one to open up as a marijuana store, but two out of the blue. But how did they get that information to know where to look, who to go to? I mean, the two existing businesses they went to, and
Well, they're active with the town manager's office and the board of selectmen, but they haven't filed a site plan, so we
but
aren't involved in it.
how did they get all that information that here, I got a building here we can go to, Abington's got two open licenses, and that's
They
kind of
did their research, I guess,
They did
rather
their
than listen to
research.
someone that said that there is no space.
Yeah, I would be curious just to see the, so, if I'm not allowed to get into this because it's not on the agenda, please let me know. My concern,
Not allowed to get into.
Okay.
Yes,
Sorry.
if there's a letter, I'd be interested to see one.
Could we put out for public notice that we are not meeting in July?
We-
Or we're meeting in July?
We may have a meeting in August, which we approved earlier. That's not the case, we won't have a meeting until September.
Okay. I just want to put this out to people on TV.
But if someone wants to come in and build a fantastic manufacturing plant or something
We'll
around
have a
town,
meeting in Florida.
and we need to have a, and not hold them up for 3 months, I'm sure we will consider it. Motion to adjourn?
Second. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Dan.